I just wanna ride my bike, yeah. I'm just sick of always watching the news. I just wanna go outside, yeah. Spend a weekend way up top with a view.
Yo, what is up, everybody? You're listening to another episode of The Room Break, where the goal of this podcast is to press on the brakes on life a little bit and appreciate some of the businesses around us. I'm your host, Albert, and I am on my bicycle right now. So today, we're learning about Juicero. Like, normally, I would research like a thriving company, but all these thriving companies that make dents, like positive dents in the world. But that is not always the case with businesses, so the business world is not always sunshine and rainbows, as we've seen. But some of the ideas are great, and they may die out from like lack of funding, lack of entrepreneurial spirit, poor management, scandals between executives, lawsuits, and just to name a few scenarios. And the opposite side of the coin also happens. Some ideas are really not that great. They're not really solving a problem, or it's so niche that when you really look back at it, you're just wondering why it exists, you know? And that's where I think Juicero falls under this category of why does it exist, and we will jump into that. So the product and idea, it's pretty lackluster. We'll talk about that later in the episode. And but we'll definitely talk about how they ended up getting a lot of buzz in Silicon Valley and how they acquired a lot of money from investors for this idea. It's great to touch on all the successes of a business, but we also have to touch on the failures. Failed businesses are just as important because we can give you some warning on what you can avoid in the future for your business. Just a little overview. So a little bit about the Juicero founder, Doug Evans. Doug was an interesting fellow. That's how I would put him. And previous to Juicero, he was the CEO of a New York juicing company called Organic Avenue. So it makes sense that Evan wants to bring his idea of health and wellness through juicing to the homes of people. And it seemed like he had good intentions of the product, but there are definitely darker sides to this. So we won't touch on Evans too much on this episode, but his former employees did not have the most positive things to say about him. Let's say there were some managerial problems within the company as well. So Juicero was a startup that focused on these super fancy high-tech home cold press juicing systems, and guess this price, $700 for a juicing machine. It's crazy. So they created this product to try and fuel the raw revolution and fad that rose to fame in January-ish of 2013. Juicero timed this out perfectly because that's around the same time when they were founded. And because of these analytics and these trends and eager investors trying to cash in on the juicing fad at this time, and this is what I'm assuming why investors were throwing so much cash into Juicero, because being early to the party means you get a bigger piece of the pie, more money potentially, more power in that industry. Pretty similar to like Apple when they first started. It was super cheap stock, and just look at them now. Just got an insane like return on investment. So they just wanted to cash in on that. But being a startup so volatile, especially in the food and beverage industry, many items and products end up cycling through pretty quickly. These are just some trends that I've seen. They fulfill the fad of the moment, but they eventually just phase off. One really popular like fad really as a child that I saw was like weird colored ketchups and mustard, if you remember that. I'll give you an F for respect, you know. So just really weird time. Yeah, just why would you make like these purple ketchups and green mustards? But it was odd. Companies had really wacky commercials trying to entice consumers. It was pretty. I bet it was pretty popular at the time. A lot of like moms or a lot of parents were just buying like these weird like mustards and stuff. But yeah, that fad died off, and some fads that I see right now and like are like the no sugar, no sodium organic ketchups. Just trying to keep up with different trends, and that's probably going to be a fad, the organic fad. And then people will just go back to the original thing. And this is where I think Juicero was at the center of. They were just fulfilling a fad, building a product to fulfill the potentially lucrative juicing fad. Juicing became super popular around that time. Juicero timed the birth of the company correctly. 2013 enticed many of the Silicon Valley investors at the time. Juicero raised about $120 million before they went under in 2017. $120 million. That's a lot of money. So let's talk about the product. Very, very lucrative selling stuff. Very lucrative market, the juicing market. But the product that they built was the problem. So the juicer machine was originally sold at $700, and they discounted it to $400 to get more sales because it's pretty expensive, you know. $700, even $400 is expensive. And these machines claim to use 4 tons of force to squeeze the bags that they gave you. So this is a Unitasker in the kitchen, a $400 Unitasker, and their ancillary revenue stream for the machines were these brand specific Juicero packets, and they were about $5 to $8, I believe. So $7-ish average. Yeah, it's around there, depending on what you get. And you can only purchase the packs if you own a Juicero machine. And the Juicero machines were only recognized by these Juicero packs. And these packs were filled with diced fruit and vegetables. And they were super specific that they even had a QR code. This is the Silicon Valley part of the machine coming in. So there was a QR code attached to each package. And if the pack was expired, the Juicero machine wouldn't juice it. You also needed a Wi-Fi connection to summon and turn on the machine. You needed to download the Juicero app to get the machine's attention. And I think it was just a mess, just putting a digital solution to something that doesn't really need a digital solution. And there was also another problem because it was Bloomberg. They put a YouTube video saying that basically they just had one person squeezing the bag by hand, and you can get relatively around the same amount of juice. So by hand you yielded about 7.5 ounces of juice versus the 8 ounces from a Juicero pressed bag. So yeah, just think about that. You have a machine, $400, and you have to buy these specialized packs. It's a Wi-Fi connected machine. It's all this fancy stuff, and you don't need any of that. You can just squeeze it by hand. Yeah, it's super wild. And then when these questions were brought up to the founder, Doug, his only response was, not all juice is equal. So that's just like another red flag for the leadership. They're not addressing the problems, and that's probably why they went under. You know, he just didn't want to accept it. People cannot justify the price tag for these machines because you could just hand press it get a similar result. Thus, in the coming months after this news hit, Juicero went under. Lots of changes. They had to lay off a lot of their workers. I think about half of their workforce. Times were really tough for Juicero. They had to slash their prices from 400 to 300, 300 to 200, and to try to survive, and that just wasn't enough. Juicero was also offering full refunds for those who were unsatisfied for the machine. So yeah, just a lot of money just been pushed around. Yeah. 2017, Juicero went under and had to close their doors. So some of the problems were Juicero was in search of a problem, but they weren't actually solving a problem. They may have solved a Silicon Valley problem by putting a digital solution to whatever they do, putting a Wi-Fi connection, some QR codes, some really fancy stuff on this machine, and it didn't really need to exist, you know? They also had another problem, was just being born in Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley is a different bubble from the rest of the world. Doesn't mean it's scalable to other areas of the US or anywhere else in the world. It's a weird place, you know, Silicon Valley. The Juicero machine was too expensive at $700 to $400, to then slash down to $300 and $200 range. Juice packs were expensive at $6 to $8 a pack. It got the attention of Silicon Valley investors, but scaling the product to a wider audience failed. Some successful appliances that I want to mention that went over people were like the KitchenAid stand mixer or the Vitamix. Both are incredibly versatile. They actually are solving problems, and they actually do something rather than being a Unitasker. They have like endless possibilities if you know what you're doing with it. And they all are pretty pricey machines. The KitchenAid is about $200, and the Vitamix is about $350 to $500. So yeah, like you can definitely charge a premium on your household product. People will buy that. Both are super successful products, but the Juicero is just, there's like no purpose, you know. But yeah. Also, another one that came up to mind that was super successful was a rice cooker. That's a Unitasker, but it's actually like solving a problem. But yeah, very, very interesting of Juicero. So back to the Vitamix and the KitchenAid. Both of those machines have mastered the high-end market of the high-end home kitchen appliances because they actually are useful. Let's see what else I got on here. So I'm recording this a little differently. I kind of just threw everything on there. I didn't really follow the template. So yeah, just trying something new. But I'll go over the regular questions. So proper full name, Juicero. It was headquartered in San Francisco. Light just went off. So I'm biking in the dark. Cool. Founded by Doug Evans in San Francisco, California. Founded 2013 at the start of the juicing revolution and fad. Privately held. Raised $120 million over their time. Peak valuation of $270 mil. Had about 50 to 70 employees. We already talked about the key product, the Juicero machine. About $700 when it first came out. Slash it to 4, slash it to 3, slash it to 200. And unique leadership. Oh, I also forgot to put the packs. About $7 a pack for the juice packs. And the leadership, Evans was a interesting fellow. That is all I'll say. In short,